Welcome to this video overview of working with data exchange in SureTax. In this tutorial, we will cover how to configure rules in data exchange, including how to work with conditions and actions. Data exchange rules are rules that apply to a transaction invoice before the calculation occurs. SureTax applies exchange rules to the invoice, determines which values need to be converted based on those rules, and performs the appropriate conversions before the calculation takes place. Today we're going to walk through configuration of a data exchange rule, starting by accessing that screen through the menu. We can find data exchange under the Overrides heading. On this screen we can see cards representing rules that have already been created. These cards display the name of the rule, the description, and the priority assigned to it. On the right, you'll notice that the cards displayed can be filtered based on whether they're active or inactive. Today we'll be adding a new rule using the Add button. From this menu you can create a category into which rules can be grouped. You can also add rule components independently. A user-defined table, action, or condition. But since we're creating a new rule, I'll discuss those as we're configuring it. We're going to be adding a rule that looks for a specific zip code and converts it to another one, so I'll give it an appropriate name and description. This rule is set to active by default, but it can be toggled to inactive if you choose. I'll go ahead and place this rule in the override category. As we saw, you can create a new category using the Add button on the data exchange screen, but you can also do so here if you choose. The only required field is the name, with an optional description field. You'll recall that the cards on the data exchange screen displayed priority, which determines the order in which the rules are run. This new rule defaults to 3 since it's the third rule created, but that priority can be edited after saving the rule if needed. The effective date defaults to today, and the end date defaults to the end of the year. I'll leave those fields as they are for now. Let's proceed to adding a condition. A condition specifies the circumstances in which this rule will be applied. If a condition is an if, then an action will be the then. Creating a new condition will place it in the sidebar with the other conditions, which can be added to other rules in the future provided we don't specify otherwise using this toggler. The first part of this rule will list the zip code that needs to be converted, so I'll add a name and description for that. Now we can choose which specific criteria to use. In this case it's a particular zip code we're looking for. From the operator field we can determine the relationship between the selected item and its value. Do we want the zip code to match a particular value for this rule to be applied? Do we want it to be different? In this case I'm going to give a specific value that I want to convert, so I'll leave it as equals. Now you might decide to toggle substring to on, if you're using a file that has different positions in it, but in this case we're using an API so I'll leave that toggled off. Condition source is where we can provide the reference that supplies this information. If you select table here, you'll be given an option to upload a user-defined table that you created as your condition source. In this case we're going with value, which enables me to enter free text. The value in this case will be the zip code that I want to be converted. So we've created a condition that says this rule should be applied when the ship-to zip code is 75025. Now, let's save it and move on to the next part of the rule, which is the action. The condition was successfully created, and appears in the sidebar for us to use. I'll go ahead and drag it into the rule we're creating. Next we can move to actions, which are on the tab next to conditions. Again we already have actions available to choose from, which could be applied to this rule. But let's create a new action instead. As with the condition, we'll fill in the name and description. Now we want the zip code in the condition to be converted to a different zip code, so I'll select the same item here for the second clause of the rule. We have the same options for condition source here, including the option to upload a user-defined table if you choose. Right now, however, I'll stick with value. Then I'll enter the value for the new zip code. And we're ready to save the action. So now it's available in the sidebar to be added to the rule. You can of course add more conditions or actions if you choose. Say for example that I don't want this rule to take effect just when the zip code I specified is found, but when it's found and also there's an invoice number with a certain value. I could further refine the criteria in that case by adding an additional condition. Or maybe if the zip code in the condition is found, I want to change it and also change the business unit. You can make a very complex rule in this way, but today we're going to stick with a simple rule converting one zip code to another. The rule was successfully created, displaying the name, description, and priority assigned to it. Remember that this priority indicates the order in which the rules are run, and can be edited after you save them. And if I click the card for the rule we just created, you'll see that most fields here can be edited after the fact, except for the name. So you can not only adjust the priority, but reassign the category and effective dates, add or remove conditions and actions, and deactivate the rule if you need to do that. This is where we'll bring our tutorial to a close. I hope that you now feel comfortable creating and working with data exchange rules, and have a good understanding of how they function. Thanks for watching our video on working with data exchange rules in SureTax.